Let me tell you a story. I was at a dance class. I can't remember whether I was teaching it. I think I was teaching it. Anyway, there was a new female student there. So we were doing some freestyle after the dance class. And I said, as I'm dancing with her, I said, "My name's Ren and your name is..." And she told me her name. And I said, "Oh, you almost died as a baby." And she went, "How the hell did you know that?" Just on the basis of her sharing with me her first name. And I'll tell you how I did it, and I'll tell you what the name was towards the end of this short video. My name's Dr. Ren Alexander. It wasn't always that name. Originally, I was Gary Ross Sargent, and I changed my name like half a lifetime ago. And how I came to change that name is also the story of how name decoding came about. But let me look at this from a theoretical point of view about why name decoding works. When people first hear about it, they think, oh, this is like some gee whiz numerology type thing, you know, it's some new agey type thing. It's actually ultimately just hard, basic psychology. People do things for a reason. Parents name children for a reason. It's not randomly selected by a computer or throwing dice or something, or randomly tearing up pages from a baby name book and throwing it in the air and then grabbing one as it falls and looking at the first name and go, oh, well, we'll call our baby this name. Something about the name attracts the parent's subconscious to it, and that's why they name the baby. Now, this is different in English from many other languages. Billions of Chinese people give their babies meaningful names. But the way the English language has evolved, names have lost their meaning. All right, let me have a little game with you, okay? All right. What is the plural of hose? What is the plural of nose? Noses, right? So what is the plural of hose? Hoses. What is the plural of nose? Noses. Who led the animals into the ark? Now you just thought, unless you've really heard this before, Moses. Moses led the animals into the ark. But he didn't. That was Noah. Of course, oh my God, Noah. But the sound of the word, the oses, clicks in and you go, oh, Oses, Moses. All right, here's another. Let's see if you can complete this for me. Maharajas and those of royal ilk, while lounging round in purest silk, will sit and watch their cows drink milk, right? Cows drink milk. Cows do not drink milk unless they're baby cows. They drink water. But the ilk sound is powerful, right? Rhymes and word associations are powerful in the subconscious. And because names are now meaningless, the sound of the word resonates with something in the parent's subconscious, and that's why they name the baby. Out of subconscious fears, hopes, and expectations that associate with that name. Now, just as words have lots of different meanings, for instance, you know what a bank is, right? Oh, yeah. I go to the bank and take out money. But what if you're fishing? You go to the bank to fish. Or what if you're an airline pilot? You bank an aeroplane, right? So it depends on the context what the word means. And the same's true of names. There can be more than one possible decoding. But for instance, take this case. The parents, they're very mild-mannered people. They're very gentle souls. And they think, you know, if we have a boy, we want him to be obedient and hardworking and not too emotional. We don't want to have a kid standing up to us and defying us. Now, there's no name that means those things. Maybe there was once upon a time, but all the names have lost their meaning. But that's a word in English that means hardworking, emotional, and obedient. It comes from Polish, and that word is robot. And this association in the parent's subconscious can attract them to the name Robert. And this issue is big with a lot of Roberts. Oh, I have to be hardworking, control my emotions, be obedient. It becomes a big issue for a lot of them. So what I discovered, and I work with hundreds of clients, I had this insight to names, and that's talked about in another video, how I got that insight. And I thought, oh, I can help other people decode their names and find out what the subconscious associations were that attracted the parent to that name and how it's affected them. But then I discovered, to my surprise, that I could decode names cold without ever having met the person at all. Like this person I danced with I hadn't met before, and I could say, oh, you almost died as a child. That is serious level weirdness and impossible without name decoding. Impossible without the theory and practice of name decoding. So I started to do this at the Mind, Body, Spirit Festival in Sydney, which was the biggest festival of its kind at the time, hundreds and hundreds of people every year. And people would pay me actually to do my research. They would pay me and I would decode, look at their names and look at decoding and the associations. And if they couldn't relate to it, I would give them their money back. Because, So, and then I became more and more sophisticated, and I would not just take their names, I'd get them to put it in the parents' names and the names of their siblings and their name in order, first and middle name and the surname as well, because that sometimes influences things. So I, became more sophisticated at name decoding. But there were many, many weird cases and sometimes heart-rending cases. One person from that always stood out to me was a woman who came to me with the name of Pamela Leslie. This is the first Mind, Body, Spirit Festival I was doing this. And I looked at it, I said, look, I have to tell you that this name, Pamela Leslie, this has the highest probable decoding of pa, me, like, Leslie. I.e., I have to model myself on my father, my pa, my da, my dad, but I will always judge to be somewhat less than him. And this poor woman burst into tears. That summed up for her so much of her childhood and other parts of her life. Now, years later, I'm doing more comprehensive sheets and I see this name. Oh, you're the second Pamela Leslie I've ever had through here. And I look up and she's smiling at me because it's the same woman. But her energy is so different. She's got a boyfriend now. She looks really happy. It's like this, finding this out about this imprint of a name, just finding that out allowed her to let go of a lot of stuff and move on. And of course, some people actually then came to me for help with changing their names. And I supported people in finding better names for themselves, including myself. So that was Pamela Leslie. And another time I remember I had some spare time and I'm looking at this guy whose name was Malcolm Angus, and that has a lot of, Angus especially can really associate with anger and issues of anger in the family. And there were other associations with anger. And the mother was Bernadette, like had this burning debt inside her, this debt of anger and stuff. And I was looking at this, there was so much anger indicated that I was actually worried about sharing the decoding with this guy. And he comes in and he's this big guy, like 6'4", and but I'd already done the decoding. So I just said to him, look, what did you do about all this anger in your family? And he said, drugs for years and then psychotherapy. And the most heart-rending one I ever had, because I only had 15 minutes with clients at the Mind, Body, Spirit Festival. There was this woman, she was in her mid-20s, and there was herself and her sister, and they both had highly sexualized names, highly sexualized. And I looked at her and she was like, I guess you might even say a bit frumpy. She was short hair, a bit plump, from memory, no makeup. So she wasn't like living up to this highly sexualized name or fulfilling it. And I said to her, who named you? And she said, our Father named us both. my blood started to run cold. And I said, "What do you remember from your childhood?" And she said, "I don't remember anything from before the age of 10. She blocked a lot of stuff out. So I gave her references to people I knew who dealt with those sorts of things, but I didn't actually say, "Look, I'm almost certain your father sexually molested you and your sister," and that was because that was what is in his subconscious. Those things were going on when he was attracted to those names. So, how did I know that this woman I just met, I was dancing with, how could I say to her, "Oh, you almost died as a baby"? What was her name? Her name was Olive. And Olive has a possible decoding of O-live. It's the parents willing the child to live. And they're willing the child to live because there's some issue that the baby may not live. Now, what if she'd said to me, "Oh no, I didn't almost die as a baby"? Then I would have said, "So one of your previous, you weren't the first child, and one of your the previous babies died." Because it's almost very, very likely to be one of those two things. And I was sharing this with a guy called Clive, and he went, "Oh my God, I've got live in my name and I almost died as a baby." This is what I call live names. Name decoding is very powerful. Now, as I like to explain it, it's like, because the names have no meaning, they become like free radicals in the parent's subconscious to be associated with words that do have meaning. So it's like a dream. They're having a dream, but very often it can be a bit of a nightmare rather than a pleasant dream. Some names are more positive than others. So I really urge you to find out the decoding of your name. I don't urge you to go and start berating your parents. They didn't know any better. I now have a course, How to Name Your Baby, so that parents can name babies more sympathetically and consciously. Please, get your name decoding. The first one is free, okay? What have you got to lose, right? And I hope you get something out of it. And I hope you join our Facebook group. And I hope you join this journey to learning about the impact of your name. You know that story about Pamela Leslie? I shared that in a radio interview, and another Pamela Leslie phoned up the station and said, "Spot on.